Okay, guys, hopefully you got something out to continue your notes. Yesterday, we talked about the exploration of the Portuguese and the Spanish. Remember with the Portuguese, we talked about Prince Henry the Navigator, how he set up seafaring schools, and how he utilized the astrolabe, magnetic compass, and caravel to help propel Portugal to be a national competitor for exploration. That Bartholomew Diaz goes to the southern tip of Africa. Vasco da Gama goes to the southern tip of Africa onto India, and then you have Cabral, who is the one that's noted for founding Brazil for the Portuguese. Then we looked at Spain. We talked about how Ferdinand and Isabella waited a little bit before they got into exploration because they were having issues with the Moors were in Spain, and they tried to eradicate them. They're spreading Islam, so they got rid of them. They funded a voyage with Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus goes to the New World. Not a super great guy. La 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 la, Christopher Columbus. Then we have other explorers like Balboa, who is going to name the Pacific. We have Coronado, who is in search for the 7 cities of gold. Juan Ponce de Leon, who is in search of the Fountain of Youth. Let's see, De Soto, he's the one with Arkansas. It kind of goes in that area, and so on. Today what I want to look at is I want to look at just Spain in particular, and how Spain governed in the New World. Okay? Because Spain in the New World had a major part. When we look at Spanish settlements in the New World, we need to think of them, first of all, remember the 3 G's?
God, gold, glory.
God, gold, and glory. Okay, so remember that's a key focus. We're going to spread Christianity. We're going to get the glory of exploration and proving something, and then we're going to spread Christianity. Okay. So they end up having a settlement pattern. Basically, they set it up in 3 ways, or 3 parts. Sometimes these are separate, but most of the time they're together in the same area. First thing they set up was they set up a presidio. And a presidio is a place for the military. It's like a fort. Okay. It might be a compound, something like that, but they're going to set up a presidio. It's where the military is. And the reason why they set up presidios is because this is going to make sure that the mission for the Spanish gets carried out. That you're not going to have a native population, some Indian group that's going to go out and wipe them out, or other European countries going to come in. It's a way to keep control. The next thing that would be in a community would be a mission. Now, what's the goal of a mission? Money. Even though money is always the root of everything. A mission would be for the church. Okay? It's a church of some sort. Here's the evolution of it. It's kind of like you have a mission, and the mission then turns into maybe a smaller church facility of some sort. And then as the city grows or the need grows, they might even build things like a cathedral. Some gigantic church in a town. If you look at the geography patterns for Latin American countries, first of all, can you tell me what Latin America means? Where is Latin America? What? And? Central and South America. It's from Mexico down to the southern tip of Tierra del Fuego with South America. That's Latin America. Okay? Spanish/Portuguese colonies right there. So anyway, for the church, for the geography of like major cities, you'll see it's a little bit different than here in the United States. In their larger cities, they have a church that most of the time is in the center, or the town has grown around it. They also have a plaza that's off from that, some main street. Some, in today it's going to be a big wide street, with lots of office buildings and high residential zones, you know, big apartment buildings, things like that that are on these plazas. And that's where the wealthy people live. Most of the time it looks about like you think of the cross, okay? But you think of the cross, at the end of the cross or the top of it is the church, and then you have these avenues, this main avenue going off from that, okay, leading up to and then off from. That's where the wealth is in Latin American countries. In the United States, we have a lot of wealth that seem to move outside of the cities to the suburbs. In Latin American countries, the wealth is in the center part of town, and the people who are poor live on the outskirts. Okay, the slums, the barrios. But anyway, we're a little different. Of course, we notice in America that the intercity is changing. People are going in and rebuilding those inner cities. It's called regentrification or just gentrification. But at any rate, we have missions. The next thing is basically just where regular people live. And to start off, it would be in something called a pueblo, you know, kind of like a protected little town area. And then, of course, we know that things would grow different. You know, as Spain really built up their colonies, they built things like haciendas. Haciendas are like plantations, stuff like that, big farms. But for the most part, pueblos is where regular people live. Mission was to extend the church, the Catholic Church, and to spread Christianity. And the presidio was for protection. Of course, when we look at the New World, we need to think about it from another perspective, because these terms will be coming up. You have basically, at first, two countries that are established, or two viceroyalties. And the viceroyalties, you have New Spain, which is North America, and you have Peru, which is South America. Huge areas. A person who controlled that would be called a viceroy. For Spain, Spain wanted to make sure that these colonies that they had would be loyal to them. That Spain's interest would always be number one. Because remember, you've got glory, God, and gold. And they want to make sure that they're getting their part of the glory and the gold for sure. So what they end up doing is they end up establishing something called the laws of the Indies. Now, the laws of the Indies established a settlement pattern, a social structure, for the colonies. Remember when we looked at medieval time period, and we looked at the king being the top, and we worked our kind of way down with the classes of individuals? Okay, we did the same thing kind of with the Renaissance. Now we're going to look at it from the perspective of the New World. At the very top, you have the top class of people, and they're called peninsulares. Peninsulares. What's the root word you see in that? Peninsula. What peninsula am I talking about?
No.
What? Iberian Peninsula. Remember I had you learn that when we did geography, the Iberian Peninsula. What countries are on the Iberian Peninsula? Portugal and Spain. Well, in this particular case, the highest class of people would be a peninsulari. That's a person who came from the peninsula. They're Spanish. They were born in Spain. They came over to the New World. They knew the mission. They knew the goals of the Spanish government. They have close ties to the people who are in charge in Spain. Close contact. These are individuals who, in this particular society, are the top, the upper class. This is the wealthy. Now, other people can be wealthy, but these people run the government. And only these people run the government. Only this class of people can run the government because they have that connection back to Spain. And remember, Spanish goal in settling was to take the glory and the gold back to Spain. Peninsulares, those people who came from the peninsula. Full-blooded Spanish. They're not half anything. They're full-blooded Spanish. The next one down, this is a little bit interesting, a Creole. A Creole is an individual who is also full-blooded Spanish. But think about this. What if you had a Peninsulari who married a Peninsulari and en route to the New World had a baby on the boat, or had a baby when they got to the New World? It's still full-blooded Spanish, but they weren't born in Spain. These people could have wealth. These people could go to colleges. These people could do everything that a Peninsulari could do. They looked just like a Peninsulari, but they could not run the government because they don't have that connection. Okay. The next people, first of all, who were the people who were here? Native Americans. Native Americans were already here. The Indians, they were already here. What happens if you have a Peninsulari or you have a Creole that hooks up with a Native American and they have a child? Those people are called mestizos. Mestizos. Mestizos are, when you look at the class structure, you know, when you think upper class, middle class, low class, you know, these people are probably going to be, you know, the low end of middle to the high end of low. They're the workers. You know, in today's society, they'd probably be the blue collar workers, the average people. Mestizos, mixed. Of course, the major part of the population that would be here would be the Native Americans. So that's the large numbers.
So the mestizos are half
Spanish
and half something else.
And half Indian.
Okay.
Okay. Because the Indians were here. Okay. One of the things that happens during this time period is the idea that, see, Ferdinand and Isabella, they wanted to make sure that everybody in the New World were considered Spaniards. You know, everybody is Spain. We claim this for Spain. You are now a Spaniard. And we're not going to exploit you, because they passed laws there thinking that if they make everybody a Spaniard, then these people, these native peoples, that they heard all these stories about them being exploited, wouldn't happen, because it's a Spaniard. I've made them a Spaniard. Okay. The problem is that they were, you can say all you want to, but people in Spain, they're in Spain, and people in the New World, they're in the New World, and they're going to kind of do what they want to do. So they pass something called an encomendaz. They pass a law. And this law basically is a tax. And the tax is that if you're a Spaniard, you pay taxes. You're all Spaniards, and you pay taxes. Okay. So, let's see. I'm going to go along and open your door. Do you have your encomendaz? No. You don't have your encomendaz. You have your encomendaz?
Yeah. No.
No, no comprende. You know, don't understand what it is. You have yours? No. No. Then come here. Come here. Okay. Got you up here. Okay. First of all, I probably should have got all males, but we're gonna play like you're male. Okay. Speak with the deep voice. Okay. Gonna show you what to do. To pay your taxes back, you got to work in the field. Okay. You ready? You ready? You ready? Working in the field. Working in the field. Working in the field. Woo. Do that. Run off.
Yeah,
Run off.
Walter.
Leave. And off in the woods they go. So see, they work in the field, and then off in the woods they go, because they've been there. They've been there the whole time. And here's the other thing. The Spaniards came along, you know, the people in charge, they came along and they picked the male. They picked the male out to go work in the field. He's going to pay the taxes. Remember, these are Native American peoples. They're hunters, gatherers. The male was the hunter and the person who told the grand stories. The female was the person who might have worked in the field. Okay, so they run off in the woods. So they're like, oh my gosh, I got to go get somebody else. So they go get more people, and they do the same thing again. It's this constant trouble with trying to get people to work. Not working. We have a priest. His name is Bartolome de las Casas. And Bartolome de las Casas, he looked out his window one day, and he says, you know, we have problems. See, we have these people, these men, these Native American men who are trying to pay their taxes, and yes, we need them to work. Okay? But then they're working in the field, they don't know how to work. They're not into agriculture at all. Okay? They're not major craftsmen, artisans, all this other stuff. And then they know where they're at. So they're off in the woods, and we're always having to go hunt them. So he's like, you know, I have an idea. My idea is to, what if we bring over, how about Africans? And we use them as slaves. And we'll bring them over. First of all, they know how to farm. They're craftsmen. They know a little bit about architecture. They're smart people. But here's the thing. They don't know where they're at. They can't go back. Bartolome de las Casas is the one who, basically the black legend, the idea that he is going to come up with this idea of bringing Africans over as slaves. Now, this is a guy who, you know, would eventually report back that it was much worse than he thought. He thought it would be better to bring them over because they knew what they were doing, and it would be better on the Native Americans. Sure, it got better on the Native Americans, but it was a whole lot worse on the Africans. You know, to use them, first of all, the passage itself to get from Africa to the New World, you know, was definitely difficult. The idea that, you know, even some people today believe that all Africans speak the same language and all have the same beliefs. Extremely diverse population of people. Okay, and anyway, he regrets his suggestion. You know, that it was awful. He shouldn't have done that. Well, to continue then with our social structure, because we brought over Africans as slaves, and Africans would be the bottom of the barrel as far as that goes. They're going to be the ones who are the very lowest of the social structure. But occasionally you would have a person who was of mixed descent, of possibly all the way through here, a Peninsular Creole, Mestizo, Native American, with an African slave, and those people are called mulattoes. And a mulatto is not a whole lot better off than the African slave. And we will also see that social structures will, based on race, will be utilized from other histories in the United States versus South Africa and other nations. We even get into India. One of the things that you need to realize is that this expansion that the Europeans are doing into the New World creates something called the Columbian Exchange. And to exchange something means that both sides are getting and receiving something. See, when you think of the New World had some stuff that was similar to Europe, but there was also a lot of stuff that was not native here, or that was not native in Europe that is now. Things like the potato. You can laugh, the potato. The potato saves Europe. See, the potato was here in the New World. I want to say it originated in Peru. And the potato would be brought back to Europe. See, in Europe, in order to feed a family, To feed one person in that family before the potato, you had to grow 1 acre of crop for 1 year, and it would feed one individual. So if you had a family of 4, you needed 4 acres, that sort of thing. It kind of kept the population at bay in Europe, and not growing a whole lot because of the, the need for more lands or whatever it might have been. But, starvation and famine was one of the things. And if you don't have a good, healthy diet, you probably won't have kids that survive to adulthood, or you won't live very long. Your life expectancy, pitiful. But the potato made it to where on 1 acre of land, you could grow enough potatoes to feed a family of 4 for a year. So that caused the population to increase in Europe. Of course, eventually we'll talk about things that happened, like the potato famine, a couple of years of ruined crops and things like that that causes people to die off and flee, the area. One of the things too is the idea that not only did things leave the New World, which most of the time, if you look at the statistics, there were more goods that left the New World and went to Europe than Europe gave back. But Europe would give things back, like, say, horses. Or the idea that I mentioned earlier about pigs, the Razorbacks, or Arkansas, that sort of stuff. It wasn't native, to here. They take back spices, they bring over crops and things like that. If you watch old movies, and the old movies, or even new ones for that matter, are depicting explorers, the explorers will have things on their boat like trees. Like maybe a fig tree or an apple tree or whatever, grapes, to see if they will grow in various areas. Grapes were in Europe. Were they in the New World? No. So they're brought over here. Do we have grapes in Northern California or Chile or Argentina? Yes. So that's the Columbian exchange. Everything's not always good either. Remember I told you about the Aztecs? And how the Aztecs, what killed off the Aztecs, or what allowed the Spaniards to take control of the Aztecs? Disease. Yeah. They brought back smallpox, things like that. Things that, the flu, things that probably didn't impact Europeans as much because they were used to it. They had immunities, but the Incan population or the Aztec population couldn't handle it. They also take diseases back. They take diseases back from here to Europe. You ever heard of syphilis?
Yeah.
Not a pleasant disease. But they took that back from here to Europe. So anyway, not everything was always good. Okay. We'll kind of end with notes on that. What I want you to do now, between now and the end of class, first of all, you should have a quiz on Monday. If we don't do it on Monday, it's because we're doing an activity with you. But you will have a quiz over this at some point, especially after we pick up the English and the French explorers. I need you to make sure that you understand these notes. The notes are where you want them to be. They look good. You post them back or share them back somehow, whatever she has you do as your assignment that's in Moodle. Check it. And you need to work on History Day. So for the remainder of class, if you need to do research or whatever you need to do, you need to work on that. We good? She's a little ahead of where she needs to be on that. National imperialism doesn't start in the 1800s. Beginning 16, 15, 16. Yes, you can. You can.